What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, apparently, Nathan Asha is out of the 2024 Mr. Olympia, according to his coach, Stephane, a.k.a. Boss of Outlaw, in a recent interview in German on the Rep 1 YouTube channel. So I want to thank one of my subscribers, Timo, who translated this for me. So if you go to roughly 4 minutes into the video, that's where they start talking about Nathan. And so what he says is Nathan's not doing the Olympia this year. He also says it's not because of legal issues. He said the reason is because Nathan has bigger plans and wants to improve after having such a long season, and I guess meaning because he competed so often. Now, personally, and this is pure speculation, I still think the reason is legal issues with the visa. I mean, that's been the main reason keeping Nathan out of the Olympia the past few years. And we even saw, when he did qualify and when he won that show, how emotional Nathan got when he won. And he kept saying how his goal was to get back to the Olympia. So I have a feeling it's not because he has bigger plans and wants to improve and try to come back for the next Olympia. I think it's probably the same issue that has been plaguing him for the past several years now. But in any case, unfortunately, that's still one more name subtracted from the Olympia qualified competitor list as far as who's actually going to be there competing. So who knows if Beirut Tabani will be another one that's unable to compete. We still don't know the status of his visa as far as whether it's going to be approved in time or not. So there is a chance it looks like maybe we don't see Nathan or Beirut at the Olympia, because now we know for sure we're not seeing Nathan. And again, I think this is a shame. I think both of these guys, Nathan and Beirut, both belong on the Olympia stage. They're clearly two of the best bodybuilders in the world. They qualified. They earned their spot there. I think they should be allowed to compete. Nathan's situation is a little bit different than Beirut's. Beirut's isn't necessarily a legal issue situation. It's more of a visa thing, unrelated to any legal problems. So I did kind of want to clarify that Nathan's travel issues with getting to the United States are not the same type of thing as Beirut's. Now, next up in the news, a little bit more on the Classic Physique Olympia, which we've been talking a lot about lately. Breon recently did an interview where he says that he is going to win back his third Olympia title. And the reason he gives is because he's the only other guy in that lineup besides Chris that has won it before. And then he also says he's beaten all these guys in the past that stand in his way from winning, which is true. And he is the only guy on that stage that has beaten Chris. However, the last time he beat Chris was 6 years ago, and Chris was in his early 20s. Breon was 40-something. Well, I believe Breon's about to be 45 right now, so he would have been maybe, late 30s, 39 or so when he beat Chris the last time. And Chris is about to be 30. Arguably coming into the years that most people would argue is your prime in bodybuilding. Like 30 to 35-ish is when most people say, that's your bodybuilding prime, and someone at, almost 45, that's kind of beyond your prime. So honestly, with all due respect to Breon, I really don't think there's any shot that he wins the Olympia this year. It's not 0%. It's maybe like 1% chance. Because anything can happen in bodybuilding. It is very subjective. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And the reasoning that Breon gives that he's beaten these guys in the past, that was a much different version of Chris back then. And if you look at some of the recent results, like the Arnold Classic, for example, Breon was beaten by Wesley, Ramon, Urs. So if you're looking and basing this year's Olympia on the past, I think it'd be better to look at the recent past, where you could say, well, at the last Olympia, Breon was 4th, beaten by Urs, Ramon, and Chris. And at the 2024 Arnold Classic, Breon was also 4th, beaten by Urs, Ramon, and Wesley. Chris Bumstead wasn't even in that Arnold Classic lineup, and Breon was still beaten by 3 other guys. So I don't think the fact that Breon beat Chris 6 years ago really has any bearing on his ability to beat Chris now, when he can not beat the other guys, the other guys that can't beat Chris either. And I think that right now, based on everything we've seen so far, I think the top 3 in the Classic Physique Olympia is almost certainly going to be Chris, Ramon, and Wesley. Not necessarily in that order. The only order that I think it will be for sure is Chris winning. And actually, we haven't even gone over the full qualified Classic Physique Olympia competitor list yet, so let's do that now. This is an insanely long list, and I think, again, really speaks to the popularity of this division. I mean, compare the size of this list to open bodybuilding, which is the big attraction at the Olympia. It's really pretty insane. So you've got Fanny Foddy, Nathaniel Joyner, Chen Chang, Antoine Loth, Everson Costa Mello, Damian Patrick, Chris Bumstead, Ramon Dino, Urs Kalsinski, Gabriel Zancanelli, Jihoon Bang, Wesley Vissers, Han Jin Choi, Logan Franklin, Terrence Ruffin, who we know is not doing it this year, he's sitting it out, Mike Sommerfeld, who's been looking really impressive, Darren Sherbayev, Jaehoon Park, Michael DeBull, who just won a show, Emmanuel Riccoti, Fabione Sylvan, Fabio Junio, Jeremiah Willies, Tomas Adame, Shi Chang Jin, Richard Nagy, Eric Lisboa, Hyun Seok Lee, Jose Manuel Munoz, Livingston Levinho, Matt Greggo, he's also been looking really impressive, Luca Rager, Mikhail Timoshin, Lamar Shaw, Robert Timms, Abdullah Al-Sarafi, Niall Darwin, Tyler Johnson, Zivko Petkov, Gabriel Perea, Osmar Alanis, Stephane Matala, who I'm very curious to see how he's going to do at this year's Olympia. He had to sit out last year's Olympia. This is the long-awaited Olympia appearance from Stephane. He could be a wild card here. Shidian Wang, BJ Carswell, Ahmad Hamid Aldani, Kellen Wilson, Vahid Badpi, Carlos Dahmer, Junior Jarvorsky, Andreas Eduardo Tavares, Breon Ainsley, who we just discussed, Diego Alejandro Galindo Garavito, Justin Badurina. I really like his physique as well. He's the guy that I did a YouTube short video about him a while back. He's the guy that kind of resembles Chris Bumstead, like a smaller Chris Bumstead. Andrea Kazakar, Matthews Menengate, Kim Angel, Su Moon Yin, Jorge Herrera, Mauro Fialho, Jian Gao, Brano Fryer, Adrian Sirianek, Tony Tavares, and Julio Simones. Wow, that was a long list. So I wanted to go through that whole list, number one, just because we haven't already, and number two, just to emphasize the scale of the Classic Physique division. There were 64 names on that qualified competitor list. This is going to be a really exciting Classic Physique Olympia. 64 guys compared to only 19 qualified in open bodybuilding, 3 times as many. And we already know of a bunch of open guys that are not doing it, including Nathan, including Tonio Burton. I mean, that already knocks it down to 17 guys. Now, let's talk about some of these classic guys. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we got yet another update from Ramon Dino. Now, we're 2.5 weeks out now from the Olympia. It's crazy how quickly this has gone. And again, I just kind of want to emphasize that this has been one of the preps where I feel Ramon has posted more updates than any other prep that we've seen before. Some preps he's actually been pretty mysterious and didn't post almost anything. This prep he's posting like now almost on a daily basis, videos, physique updates, pictures, which again kind of tells me that he's confident in how he looks, and I think is kind of exciting for the Classic Physique fans to get to see this much of last year's runner-up at the Olympia. And we're also seeing just as much from Wesley, who just beat Ramon at the Arnold Classic. So very exciting build-up for the Classic Physique Olympia this year. And let's talk about some of these other guys, too. I mentioned Mike Sommerfeld earlier. I've been seeing a lot of his updates lately. He looks like he's put on a significant amount of muscle between last year and this year. And at last year's Olympia in Classic Physique, he was 8th place. And he looks extremely impressive here. We just saw a video of him posing with Ramon a couple days ago. And Classic Physique is interesting because, like I just showed you, with that crazy list that we've got, I feel like so many things could change. So many placings could be different this year with that many guys competing. And Mike Sommerfeld, 8th place last year. Keep in mind who was 7th place last year. Wesley Vissers. And look how much Wesley was able to improve and seemingly move up. And now he's in most people's conversation for top 3, top 2 at the Olympia, where he was 7th last year, and Mike was just behind him at last year's Olympia. And as far as guys that are potential wild cards in Classic Physique, here's another one for you. Logan Franklin returning to the Olympia stage this year. He wasn't there last year. This is another guy that I feel could be a wild card. A lot of people love Logan's physique, myself included. I love his physique. I love his posing. I think he is a really good embodiment of Classic Physique, and I'm excited to see him back, and I think he could be another wild card here. These are the latest updates from him at 18 days out, a side tricep, and then that classic imitation of Arnold's twisting back double bicep pose. And I think Logan is also included in that conversation of taller guys in Classic Physique having a slight advantage. There's really two different types of Classic Physique. There's the shorter guys, there's the taller guys. There's the guys that kind of look like a Franco Columbu type of physique from back in the day, and there's the guys that have more of the Arnold, taller Classic Physique. And it kind of reminds me of those Olympias back in the day where they would have an over 200 and an under 200. And it would be like Franco winning the under and Arnold winning the over, and kind of that short versus tall thing. And it's kind of similar today because even though they say that the focus of Classic Physique is not about who's the most muscular guy necessarily, and the emphasis isn't on being just muscular, it's also about flow, in lines, in aesthetics, symmetry, proportion, all those same things that you see in bodybuilding, but it's limited by a weight cap. And the taller guys just have a pretty significantly higher weight cap, which, based on what we've seen so far in Classic Physique, tends to lead to the taller guys just overall having more muscle than the shorter guys and just being bigger overall, not just in height, but just size pound for pound. They seem bigger. And I think that does give them a distinct advantage when they have all those other elements of the aesthetics, the flow to their physique, the crazy V-taper like Chris has. And that's why no short guy has beaten Chris since he filled out his frame. And I think if you look back at those early Olympias that Breon was beating Chris, it was a much, much smaller version of Chris. Once Chris filled out his frame and kind of got to the upper echelon of that weight limit, nobody beat him. And so when I look at Logan Franklin, when I look at Wesley Vissers, these taller guys with bigger frames and just beautifully aesthetic physiques, I think when they're like fully maxed out their frame, these are like the guys that are in that conversation of maybe the next Chris Bumstead, because I do think there's an advantage of the taller guys over the shorter guys. No matter how aesthetic the shorter guys are, I think even with the weight increase, they gave them a little bit more poundage, some of the short guys. I do think the taller guys have a distinct advantage. And since I'm kind of going specifically just into Classic Physique in this video, I wanted to talk about one of Matt Greggo's latest updates too, this side chest here. And like I said, he's been looking really impressive in the updates that I've seen from him. This was a really impressive season for him. And I think that he is one of the taller guys as well. I mean, look at the size of this dude. And he had a couple other updates over the past few days, the past week or so. So some of these are older than 2.5 weeks out. But the most recent side chest, that was 2.5 weeks out. Now, I will say, Matt at last year's Olympia did essentially tie for last place. He was tied for 16th, which is, it's kind of weird how they do the placings like that, how they just cut him off at 16. Because like I said, you've got 60-something guys competing in Classic Physique, and they just cut it at 16, and you don't even really have a placing after that. It's just, you're all tied for last. So I don't know realistically how much Matt Greggo would be in the conversation this year, but I have been seeing a lot of his updates lately and thinking, wow, he looks really impressive. And I did double check just now on Stephane Matala's page, Mr. Unchained. There's been no recent updates since like early August, so we don't really know how he's looking. But his latest update was all the way back on August 12th, so it's not really fair to compare him to these other guys because his update was so much further back than theirs. But This is the latest that we have from him, and he actually has a pretty impressive following, 53,000 likes on his last Physique update. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, he's definitely impressed me, and I'm very curious to see how he places at the Olympia. I think he's going to be another kind of wild card guy. And like I said, when you got 60 guys in a lineup, really anything could happen. I feel like you could see so many guys have like a breakout year. There's so much potential for guys to have a breakout year and crack the top 10 that it's not really ever a lock for top 10. I feel like it's usually just like that top 5 that has been kind of the same guys in there year after year, but those like 6 through 10 placings seem to change up quite a bit. And I'll go ahead and show you guys also a guy that I mentioned when I was going through that lineup, Justin Badurina. He's the guy that I said kind of looks like a smaller version of Chris Bumstead, especially in that front lat spread pose. That's where I really see it the most. This will actually be his Olympia debut, his first Olympia ever, and this was his latest update at just about 2.5 weeks out as well. But really good flow to his physique, really aesthetic guy. I just think overall, to be more competitive on the Olympia stage of 60+ guys, he still needs to fill out his frame a little bit, and that's why I say a smaller Chris Bumstead, but I don't mean that as an insult. I think he's got a really impressive physique. I just think maybe a little bit more size to be competitive with some of these guys at the Olympia level. But definitely respect to all these guys that I mentioned in this video, and this is why I'm really excited for the Classic Physique Olympia. I mean, it's a little bit harder to cover Classic Physique throughout the year because there are so many guys that end up in the Olympia lineup, and there are so many more qualifying shows for Classic Physique than there are for open bodybuilding, like more than 3 times as many. And all over the world, too. I mean, there's way more qualifying shows, in the lineups at these Classic Physique shows are, in most cases, way deeper lineups than most men's open bodybuilding shows. You've got, like, dozens of guys at most of these Classic shows. There's so many competitors, it's so hard to keep up with throughout the year. But now that we've got this pretty much final list here, we can start talking about some of the guys that we haven't really talked about as much throughout the year. And I think this also probably will bring up that question again. Is it good to have this many competitors in one show? I mean, you're getting close to 70 competitors in one division, and it kind of brings back up that conversation of, is this one of those things that makes the show too long? Are there too many Olympia qualifiers? Is it fair to the athletes? Because it's going to take a lot longer to get through all, like their stage time is a lot longer than other divisions. But it's one of those things where this division is just so popular. That's why they have so many qualifiers, because there's so many Classic Physique pros looking to compete. That's why there's so many Classic Physique pro shows. So it makes the Olympia division way bigger. It makes the show way longer, but they're really just meeting the demand of how many guys want to compete. And I don't know, maybe there's a way to do it where they have just as many Classic Physique pro shows, but not all of them are Olympia qualifiers. Maybe there's a way to do it like that. But I don't know. I'm just rambling now. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Click that bell notification icon so you don't miss a video, because you're not going to want to miss this weekend. Samson Dauda competing at just 2 weeks out from the Olympia in France. Probably one of the most exciting shows that we're going to be covering from the past couple of months, aside from the upcoming Olympia. I think this is going to be a pretty big deal. So that's going to wrap it up for the video. As always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.